I'm here to tell you a story. And this story is about Stacy, and I know you already know her. I mean, she's an EE major from UT, and then she went to the MSTC program. She is beautiful, she runs marathons, she does triathlons, she's great. But you know, Stacy's got a problem, like so many women, and some men too, and that problem is cellulite. Now, Stacy recently met the man of her dreams, and she got married. She was so excited, but look, there she is in Maui. Oh my God, was it horrible. She hated it. And I'll tell you what, Stacy's a go-getter. She didn't want to go on her honeymoon looking like that. So what did she do? She tried lotions and creams. This one's called Goodbye Cellulite, but you know, unfortunately it didn't work. Then she tried endermology, which is an aggressive massage. You see what happened to her? That didn't work either. And then she tried adding heat to the aggressive massage and VeloShape. Still didn't work, didn't get rid of her cellulite. Finally, she was so desperate, she tried cryotherapy, which is where they freeze the fat in an attempt to get rid of cellulite. Didn't work. And the point is, 85% of women and 20% of men have cellulite, giving a $6 billion US market. Now, if there was a perfect solution for cellulite, it would treat the underlying cause, it would be pain-free, it would require one treatment, and it would be minimally invasive. And I'm Ravine Woods, the CEO of Athena Laboratories, and I'm here to tell you we have the perfect solution. Even the Mayo Clinic says many cellulite treatments, including massages and creams, advertise remarkable results, but unfortunately, they just don't live up to their claims. Now, Wayne is going to talk to you about the market.
So clearly there's a demand for people like Stacy, but in our market validation, we wanted to explore beyond people like Stacy to the people that are actually trying to treat the condition. So in our market validation, we talked to industry experts and dermatologists who are actually trying to treat cellulite. And we asked them, are the current treatments in the marketplace today effective? 81% of our respondents believe that the treatments in the market today are ineffective.
How long have y'all been working on this?
Going on 1 year, actually.
And how many people have you interviewed?
We interviewed in total 44, and part of that is that the trend early on.
In a year, you've talked to 44 people?
And part of this is because the trend early on was very compelling. We talked to industry experts right away that said, in fact, Dr. Eric Bernstein from the Northeast, who's a prominent dermatologist, said, if you can effectively treat cellulite underneath the skin without damaging the surface, you're definitely onto something.
Wasn't there a distinguished professor from somewhere nearby that wrote a book that said you ought to talk to 100 people before you ever start investing the money?
And I took his class, and as part of his class, we talked about this exact subject. And he said if the trend is compelling and there's enough evidence that you can go forward with it.
Okay.
So we expanded past that, and we asked, do you feel there's a demand for an effective treatment for cellulite? 100% of our respondents agree that there's a demand for an effective treatment for cellulite. And it makes sense because overall, the demand for cosmetic, minimally invasive procedures is increasing. So the demand for cellulite is increasing. But the key here is that doctors are using lasers more and more for cosmetic procedures. The aesthetic laser medical device industry is a $15 billion industry. Our segment is the energy-based aesthetic device segment, which is a $1 billion industry and growing. And our beachhead market is 11,000 dermatologists and plastic surgeons looking for an effective treatment for cellulite.
Okay, let me ask you, I have no idea what those markets are. Aesthetic, laser, medical, energy-based, could you help me? I don't know what they are. What's aesthetic laser medical device? What would that do?
Those would be lasers that are being used to treat aesthetic conditions. So skin rejuvenation, tattoo removal, cellulite,
and who are the,
aesthetics. Aesthetics, they're using aesthetics to treat
cellulite.
This is the whole entire industry. These are
and
people
of that, the sub is energy-based aesthetic devices.
Yeah, and to be clear, these are people buying lasers for this. These are the doctors buying the lasers.
who are the big manufacturers that are selling those?
I'm sorry, what?
Who are the big manufacturers that are selling these lasers?
Our primary competitor is Cellulase, and they actually do a little bit different laser, but they do treat the treatment. They do treat cellulite in a similar way, and they would be our biggest head-to-head competitor.
But the $15 billion of aesthetic laser market, It's not just for cellulite, it's for lasers for a bunch of different other types of treatments. Right?
Correct.
So who are the manufacturers, the largest manufacturers that are selling aesthetic lasers?
So,
There was a industry analysis, BryoCare analysis. They've identified over 70 participants in this market. Individuals like Palomar, that's on the East Coast. Can't think of the other ones, but Cyanossure. There's over 70 of these in that industry analysis, which we can share with you after this presentation if you'd like.
Okay, so let me get it clear on this market before we go on, because this is important from my perspective. So 15 billion is the whole laser-based business, no
Correct.
matter how they apply it.
Yeah.
Of that, 1 billion of the 15 billion is to the energy-based aesthetic devices,
Right.
and that's where you fit into.
and that's where we fit into.
Okay.
And clarify, excuse me, Tom, but clarify what you mean by energy-based.
So, for example, in our competitive analysis here, the energy-based would be these treatments that take energy and actually combine that to treat the underlying cause. And Ravi may be able to expand on it a little bit.
Fellowship and cryotherapy in this case would be energy-based because they add energy into it.
Oh, I see.
Okay?
Got it.
And so creams and lotions would not, and dermologies and massage.
So maybe ask another way, the $1 billion, is that going toward cellulite, or is it going to other markets aside from just that?
It's going to lasers.
Right, that are addressing,
that are addressing conditions, that are addressing.
The $1 billion, I thought I just understood that it was anything that had energy applied to it, including lasers.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay, so lasers is within inside of the $1 billion market.
Correct.
Okay.
It's specifically cellulase is inside the 1 billion.
Yes.
Got it.
So, and now Wendell's going to talk about our technology and proof of concept. So, and I'll come back to our go-to-market strategy later in the presentation.
so sorry, so let's go one more down. So the 11,000 dermatologists, how many of those, do they all address cellulite issues, or do they, there's 50 different procedures or 100?
So if you go into a dermatologist's office, they have multiple lasers for different issues. So those dermatologists are looking for equipment essentially that they can use to treat conditions specific, and where the biggest market pain is with cellulite. They have good solutions for skin rejuvenation and tattoo removal, but they don't have that for cellulite.
And the lasers they're currently buying are costing them what?
Upwards of $200,000.
Is there any objective measure of efficacy against cellulite? Is there any way that you can say this cream did or didn't work and this other cryotherapy did or didn't work?
What Wendell's going to talk about next is there's a peer review study that's included in what he'll talk about, and I'll let him address
That'll
that.
help, thank you.
So, and one more thing, our product is called Femtosmooth. So going forward in the presentation, we'll refer to it as Femtosmooth.
Good afternoon. In medicine, it's important to know the underlying cause of a problem. It's paramount if you want to look for a solution to that problem. And whether you're a pharmacologist looking for a new drug, an inventor looking for a device, or like you fellas here, looking to invest your money, having that underlying cause gives you insight into the problem and the fix for that problem. So, like the orange you have on your table there, cellulite is the bumpy, dimpled skin that appears on 80% of women and 20% of men. But the problem lies much deeper. This is a cross section here of skin and down to the muscle layer. What you have here is these dimples are the cellulite. Now, skin has two layers. It has the epidermis and the dermis. And then below that is the subcutaneous fat layer, and then here's the muscle layer. Now, the cause of cellulite is growing off this muscle layer here. These are called septia. These are thick, fibrous tissues that are very inelastic. They don't move. And as fat distributes and collects in this subcutaneous area here, it has a honeycomb-like effect, and it pushes up where these septia aren't at and causes that dimpled ripple effect. Now, these septia are so tight, they hold it down and pull so that it has an area there that's inelastic. Our laser, Femtosmooth, is a femtosecond laser. Now, what that is, it's a very high intensity, very short duration laser. Now, it has an interface with the tip on the skin, okay? And this allows the laser to focus to the level of where these septia are. And when the laser fires, these septia undergo a tissue ablation. And it's a very short duration, and it also is very little collateral damage. What it does is it causes a release of these septia so that they relax. And so then this area basically smooths out in the skin.
It doesn't cut them.
Yes, it does. It does. But it's called tissue ablation. What that is it basically, it's like a liquefaction of that area there. And it's only a few microns in size. It's very small, and there's very little collateral damage, unlike some of the other the treatments for this. Now, what I'd like to show you now is...
Actually, could you go back to that slide for a second so
Sure.
I can ask a couple questions? What are the septia made of? Are they collagen?
Yeah, well, they're a connective tissue, very thick connective tissue,
Okay,
yes.
which is largely collagen, right?
Largely
Oh,
collagen.
good, okay. And what wavelength is this laser operating at?
40,
The laser's wavelength is operating at 1,040 nanometers.
Thank you.
So if somebody had perfect skin, no dimples at all, what would that tapestry look like in terms of would you see more of them?
no. The septia act a little bit to give the skin some integrity, but most of the integrity of the skin actually is in the dermal layer here. So that's kind of the skeleton of the skin. So by cutting those septia, you really don't do anything. And those septia are cut all the time. Like if you have a surgical procedure or something, as the surgeon's going in and cutting those, or with liposuction, these septia are cut. So
once you get the treatment, you're going to have to go back again for the treatment after they repair themselves.
they probably won't repair themselves.
So
Our
one-time
studies-
treatment, no more cellulose.
That's what we think. The study that I'm going to show you here in a second, which is not our laser, goes out 2 years. And the 6 month that I have on the slide here is very similar to the 2-year results. And we can look at the 2-year results if you like, but I think that you'll see that it's pretty dramatic.
Okay.
Don't you want them to come back?
Well, that's
The dermatologist too, right?
That's certainly a theory of how you get more business. So, can we go to the next slide, guys? Okay. What this is an animal model in the laboratory. Now, there is no animal model that has cellulite. It's a human thing. But what I want you to see here with this is, notice here, this is skin. Now, we're magnified at 200 times, so the skin looks a little rippy, but the skin is actually smooth, and it's intact. Now, this is the sub-Q area where the septia occur. Now, again, this is an animal model, so it's not really cellulite. But here's the channel that the laser establishes here. And again, the take-home message for this slide is this channel is created and the skin is intact. That's really important. Okay, next slide, please. Now, this is the study.
Sorry, go back one more quick, please.
Okay.
How deep is that? It's 1 millimeter there. So you're looking at about 1 to 1.5 millimeters deep.
Probably, yes.
Got it, thanks.
The margin there is actually pretty wide. Okay. Now, this is that peer-reviewed study that I talked about a second ago. It's from the Aesthetic Surgery Journal. Now, this leg here, this is the before, and you can see the effects of the cellulite here. This is at 6 months. Now, this is not our laser, okay? This is a laser where they make an incision, they take and put a probe in. It's a hot laser, so it's painful. It requires anesthetic, and it has all the complications associated with making a skin incision. Our laser doesn't do that. So let's summarize here a minute if we could. Here's what we have. We have an effective cause, or an effective treatment of the cause. We're minimally invasive, no skin incision. One-time treatment. We're pain-free because it's a cool laser. Office-based, takes about 30 minutes. When Stacy's done, she goes home and her cellulite's basically taken care of.
How much is the unit? How much is the laser?
The laser, about $85,000, and one of our guys will talk about that in just a minute.
Okay.
We'll give you all that about the price and margins and so forth.
So in summary, you don't have any efficacy data for your approach in humans at this point?
We don't in humans at this point, but we feel really confident about that because we're doing the same thing that this study here did. We're cutting the septia just like they do, except we're doing it differently. We're an evolution beyond that particular laser.
What they're doing is they're making a decision and putting the laser up through that sub-Q space, subcutaneous fat space, right?
Right,
And
yes.
so they have some mechanical help, if you will.
Well, there may be some of that, that's true, but they actually have a laser tip on the end of their probe that actually cuts those septia. So there's cutting going on, and it's hot, and it requires anesthesia. And the problem with that is when the anesthesia wears off in a few hours, the patient goes home, and it's like any other surgical incision then.
I understand why it's bad. What I don't understand is why you're looking at that as an equivalent treatment to what you're proposing.
Because we both cut the septia.
Okay.
Okay? Did I answer your question?
They mechanically and optically disrupt the septia, and they mechanically disrupt the subcutaneous space, whereas you don't, as far as we can tell.
And that's actually part of our advantage, because we have very little collateral damage. And like I said, it doesn't take that much of a disruption of these septia for them to release, because they're very tight. It's like a rubber band. You don't have to cut a rubber band much for it to break apart. That's the analogy.
We'll come back to this later.
Okay, sure.
And I guess the invasive procedure, does it, I guess obviously it works, but does it come back? And what, I guess to my earlier question, how it takes, 4 weeks, 6 weeks to heal, and then, the skin is flat, and then how long is it flat? Or maybe another way of asking the question is, what does this layer look like for the 20% of women that don't have cellulite?
They would have smooth skin. So their skin wouldn't have the effects of the cellulite.
Do they have less or more septia?
Yeah.
Probably the same number. It's just the
The elasticity of the skins may be different?
cellulite is possibly. Cellulite is really a function of hormones. That's probably the reason why women are 80% and men are 20%. It has to do with the way women distribute their fat and the layers of their fat. And the septia probably, in women who do have it, probably are tighter and have more, less elasticity. Did I answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess just trying to understand the root cause of this, and are you actually kind of eradicating the root cause or not?
Yes.
Even though the 20% who don't, still have the septia and the structure still looks the same.
But it's the structure of how the septia interact with the dermal layer.
Got it.
But you do have a laser that works right now that focuses 1 millimeter below the skin surface.
Yes, that laser that animal slide that I showed you
Yep.
is actually a bench prototype. It's a big laser.
And that's the only thing that you have in terms of your scientific analysis to give you responses back that you believe that your laser is focused properly and that it will work.
At this point, yes.
Okay, so you've never done it on a human being?
Well, it's been done on humans and with the other, but not this.
With your competitor?
Right.
Okay, and they're using the exact same process?
Yes, but we're very confident.
They're
with
not
our-
using the
that
exact
this-
same process. They're
No,
going
no,
into the
sorry,
sub-Q
yes.
space, and he's coming through the skin.
Yeah. But I mean, our inventor is on board here with us, and we've had lots of discussions about efficacy with this, and we all feel very confident that this is going to work.
But do the animals have cellulite as well?
No, they don't. Yeah. There is no animal model that has cellulite.
Okay.
Is there a reason why management hadn't volunteered?
I'm sorry, say again?
That's my point.
I didn't hear what your question was.
I said, is there a reason why management has not volunteered?
No one accidentally backed
That
into
may
the
be a bit of a violation of the scientific, doing experiments on yourself. So,
It's not a violation of entrepreneurial.
well, you got me there. You got me there. Okay,
So
Albert's going to talk to you about the product development and our IP status.
Will you
Thanks.
talk about the other procedure, the invasive procedure, the companies or whoever's selling that laser, kind of the market penetration they've had and success and so forth? I know it's painful, but will you guys get into that at some point in the presentation?
Yeah, we can talk about it. Yeah, sure. Let Albert do his thing. Thanks.
So Athena Laboratories has exclusive license to this technology. Our IP strategy consists of 14 different patents, 8 of which are issued and 6 of which are pending. Now, the core of our patents protect the method by which we're taking existing laser technology that's currently being used in applications such as LASIK eye surgery, and the method by which we are using it to remove biological tissue beneath the surface of the skin without damaging the surrounding tissue or the external surface.
What are the terms of the exclusive license?
So because of confidentiality, I cannot discuss the terms, but I can tell you that the only minor hurdle that we have is contingent upon raising venture funds, which is precisely why we're here.
Can you say how much?
No.
Good.
There's no X amount of revenue that, I mean, a revenue number that you have to,
So there are milestones, there is a time frame. Unfortunately, I can't disclose that information.
okay?
The inventor is sitting right there for the claims that we're making. Okay. The other core patents protect the lens array, which is the device that is used to precisely focus the laser's energy beneath the surface of the skin. Now, to better understand how our technology is differentiated, I'll briefly explain the concept. All laser treatments begin with the absorption of light. The absorption of light dissipates heat, and it's this heat that is typically associated with the pain that occurs after a laser application. Think of a child who takes a magnifying glass and uses it to burn something. That's exactly how a hot laser works. Our laser is different. Our laser is different in that the amount of time that RF energy is focused is so small that there's literally not enough time to generate any heat. And that duration is on the order of a femtosecond. Well, what's a femtosecond? Well, if you think about what a femtosecond is to a second is to 31.7 million years. This thing fires extremely fast. And because it does so, there's not enough time to generate any heat, hence the cool laser application. And that is the primary differentiator between our technology and anything else that exists. As a matter of fact, the amount of time that it takes to transfer that energy is so powerful that it's not just cutting the septia, it's literally separating the atomic bond at the wave that energy is being propagated. And that's how our technology is differentiated. This is our product development timeline. What you see here, to date, the inventors have invested $1.4 million in laboratory development and a working prototype. We're further estimating that we'll need an additional $300,000 to complete the working prototype, $520,000 for the completion of clinicals with IRB oversight, $530,000 for the design completion of the commercial build laser. We're budgeting $150,000 for the completion of the 510K clearance process. And lastly, $3.5 million that'll take us through product launch and sales.
Does the inventor own the patents, or does the University of Texas own the patents?
So all patents are either exclusively owned or licensed to Dr. Thomas Milner or Dr. Joseph Neves, the other inventor.
So the UT doesn't have an interest, the inventors have an interest?
The inventors have an interest in the majority. There's 14 patents. Some of them they exclusively own, some of them they're exclusively licensed to.
Okay, good. And this 1.4 million, what's the source of that funding? Is that research?
The source of
R1
that
grant?
funding is the inventor's personal funds, university funds, and grants.
Can you give us the breakdown of that?
I don't have that with me, no.
How much of it was non-cash from investor, inventor? Percentage?
So I don't have that breakdown.
Okay. And is that aggressive to say that you can get through 510K clearance in 6 months?
Not according to Dr. Joseph Neves, the other inventor, who's already launched 2 similar aesthetic lasers, the buff laser and the ore laser, and he's taken them through 510K in 6 months. So it's not only on the recommendation that these timelines are based on our inventors' feedback, but on people like Ken Whitty, who's got over 10 years in the medical device laser industry, Dr. Eric Bernstein that Wayne mentioned, who's the former president of the American Society of Dermatological Surgeons. These are confirmed timelines from industry experts.
So there doesn't seem to be any salary in those numbers.
There is. The salaries occur here in product launch and sale. There is
Okay.
working capital in that breakdown, and Wendy can talk to those later if you need to see that.
Sure.
Okay, next I'll turn it over to Wayne for marketing strategy.
So you'd asked earlier about what we would sell the laser and the tips in the marketplace for. The laser will sell for $85,000. Our cost is $25,000. So even though we use a razor and blades model, we do have margin in both the base product and the tips. The tip will sell to the dermatologist for $150. Our cost is $15.
So what's the magic behind the 85?
The magic behind the 85 is based on our market validation. That's a median price. And the fact that it's significantly over the margin was able to allow us to cover the development expenses and get to the financials that we'll show you in a minute.
So, excuse me, but if you're right and you have fantastic patent protection on something that's the only way to get this, turn this orange into a peach, then why are you charging only $85,000? You got the Maserati and you're charging Chevy prices. So what's
There's certainly elasticity there. This is again a median price based on talking to the doctors. We just came to like a good median number here with this, but certainly if we can charge more, we will.
Do they buy it or do they lease it?
They buy it, and that's at the heart of our value proposition. Because when they buy it, their payback is at 2.2 months. So for the doctor, this is a good deal because one, they get a short-term payback on their investment. It's a cash business. The demand for the customer is going to be there because the treatment's effective and it's office-based. So they don't have, there's an overhead element here that they don't need an additional facility. It can be done within their office. And it's done in a short duration, 30 minutes, so they can definitely do multiple treatments in a day.
How does that $1,750 compare to the other procedures they're doing? You know, there's Botox, I mean, all the other lines.
So our direct competitor, Cellulite, they charge $6,500 per procedure for the cellulite removal. And the reason, let me get back to your previous question, the reason we charge $8,500 for the laser is we use a laser and blade model. So we are sell the laser together with the disposable tip. And based on our financials, our profit driver is the tips. And as long as you buy the laser, you are required to use the disposable tip. And so we put our laser in a relatively lower price. And because we are very confident it's a very effective treatment, so our profit, the profit from the disposable laser will drive our revenue. Did I answer your question?
Another point that I'd like to make about this $1,750 treatment is the thing about this business is, as Wendy pointed out, the doctor really dictates, based on the market that they operate in, what the price of the treatment is. So let's say that they're operating out of a spa, like a high-end, Four Seasons kind of spa. They might be able to charge $5,000 for the treatment. That's the doctor's call ultimately. What we did, though, is we wanted to make sure that within a reasonable price that they could charge, that they would have a reasonable payback for the investment in our laser.
Let me ask another question. Why would you let them control the price of your product? Again, if you have exclusivity, why are you letting them advertise in the Sunday paper $50 a leg? What I'm trying to say is if you really do control the market of something that's spectacular, you're giving away the laser, and you're essentially seeding what the market could capture rather than controlling it.
So just to be clear, are you asking me about the $1,750 or the price that we're charging for the laser?
Both. What I'm saying is you're abdicating your role as management in capturing as much as you can from this market.
It's actually a great point. If you look at the LASIK market, are you guys familiar with LASIK? There were two major manufacturers of the lasers, and they didn't do this. And ultimately, it just became commoditized. And you could go to the mall and get your LASIK done for $650 an eye, and then you could go to an ophthalmologist. I guess they were ophthalmologists. Then you go to a higher-end ophthalmologist, and they charge you $3,000. And and then there was this quality thing. So what happened, both those I think one of the laser manufacturers went out of business, and then the other one ended up increasing its margins. But I think it's a great point. If you can kind of control pricing and dictate that, you'll ultimately have a much more control over the market, the profitability of the dermatologists, and the commoditization which happened in the LASIK market, which was a big problem for LASIK.
I think you can attract capital a lot easier that way too. If you say, I've got a monopoly and here's how to do it, I'm going to have centers in strip centers that people will come in and we're going to go through this process. It's non-invasive. It doesn't have to have outpatient issues. It doesn't put anybody to sleep. This is the greatest thing in the world. Why share it?
You ought to look at the LASIK market. That happened 15 years ago. This all went down. It was a mess for a while.
And certainly, these numbers are based on our modeling at an early stage in the technology. As we're developing it further and further, there is elasticity in this price, and we would want to maximize the price that we're entering into the market with. So we're not presenting this as these are set in stone, and that at the end of the day, it has to be this. But we wanted to show prices that showed a reasonable revenue stream for the investors. And so I think when you see our financials, you'll see that as well. But certainly, we're going to stay attuned to the market and be as competitive as we can and charge and drive as much revenue as we can.
Did your 19 interviews indicate that it'd be 2 procedures a day?
Now, do you want to expand on the rationale behind, because these are driven from our financial model, so it might be easier for her to explain that.
Yeah, so based on the interview, the doctors will do the procedures for 2 to 6 per day, and we use the lower end 2 procedures per day. And if the doctor charge $750 per procedure, they will get their money back in 2.2 months. So it's a very attractive business for the doctors. And our directly customer is the doctors, not the any user. So we believe it's a very reasonable price, and it's based on our financials, it's still very profitable for us.
How many women do you think would be interested in this?
85% of the women in the U.S.
So what's that number?
So
100 million?
Just
100
in
million.
the United States, it's about 100 million at the right age range.
I'll make a suggestion on the name. Should be Celluno.
Okay. So let me go to the
I don't
financial.
I don't understand, to follow up on what they were saying earlier. I mean, it sounds to me like you're way understating the market. So what are we missing that has made you so understate the market?
Let me explain that a little bit. So in laser medical devices, I'm in the medical device industry, and I helped launch a multiple location med spa in Austin, so I have a lot of experience in this domain. And how it's done is that doctors, you get a key opinion leader who launches this product, writes a paper, and launches a product at, say, the American Academy of Dermatology national meeting. You launch the product at the same time, and you have your sales to your initial interested doctors at that time. Now, every company says you can get a payback in 4 months, you can get a payback in 2 months, it's standard. So we wanted to give a very conservative number for the doctors so that they could see, hey, with only 2 procedures a day, you can get your payback in 2.2 months. That's the basis of that financial decision. With that, we're only anticipating even 3% of the market in the first year. And so you'll see in a minute what that means for investors. Of course, if there's overachievement, it's even better.
Does a doctor have to do this?
No, a doctor has to oversee it, sign off on the charts, but a laser technician can do it.
So oversee, he comes in, introduces the patient to the procedure chair,
No,
and leaves?
no.
His name just has to be on it.
His name he has to sign the chart.
There's
Just
not
be
a liability
responsible.
issue? Okay.
That's the law.
I guess, is there anything that could go wrong during the process? Could you go and slip and get somebody's lip or whatever?
Sure.
I mean, I don't know.
I mean, the sky could fall.
Well, no, I'm not
There's
saying
another
that.
procedure
I'm
for
not
lips.
being absurd. I'm saying what can go wrong?
Okay, so what could go wrong? Wendell?
Well, I mean, as with anytime you're doing something to a human, you could have, in disrupting something, you could have unexpected bleeding. You could have some area that you weren't expecting, and that will come out more in our clinical studies.
Okay, so because you haven't done the human trials yet, you don't know that answer.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, but
But the mice are okay.
The mice are okay.
Okay.
Well, let me, that's exactly right. Wendell, don't go away yet, come back.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry about
Actually,
that.
actually, the mice are no longer living.
Yeah, the slide we saw told us that some of the mice didn't survive too long after.
Right.
So but the question is, did you keep any alive for some period of time to see what sort of effects that procedure did?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm assuming that they probably didn't, because what they were trying to demonstrate was that was the effectiveness of the cut. So as soon as they made the cut, they were going to have to sacrifice in order to be able to get the slide and be able to see the channel. So
Exactly.
Because the channel is so small, within a few hours to a few days, that's going to heal. You're not going to see it as easily.
Having that slide showing it healed would be very useful.
Okay.
But also having macroscopic photographs of the tissue where this happened and comparing it to the bruise of the other one, positively or negatively, would be very useful.
Excellent.
Because and frankly, there's still this question of efficacy, and that is, you did it different than the other guys because your laser was not in the subcutaneous fat, and I see that you got your nice little line of ablation, but you still have that big jump to make.
And I understand. But we're early startup. We're very early startup. We're right on the edge of doing some things in humans. So
Good.
we think a lot of those questions will be answered, and we're very optimistic that the answers are going to be good, because we
You're just at that stage, okay?
yes.
And one more question.
Okay.
The cartoon you showed had subcutaneous fat and the septia
The septum.
showing.
Yes.
The histopathology slide of the mouse tissue also had blood vessels there. And so, isn't that right, in the
Yes.
subcutaneous space? So one of the things that could go wrong is hemorrhage, right?
Right, but this laser, the size of the incision, or the tissue ablation, is only a few microns, and a red blood cell is like 7 microns. So the bleeding is less likely.
Yeah, but if you take a few microns all the way through this finger, it's going to fall off if you go this way. And
Yes.
so what I'm trying to get to, and the other thing I know about arteries is, if you cut them cleanly, they bleed. If you cut them bluntly, they stop. And so
Right.
I'm a little bit worried about the clean cut on an
Well,
artery.
Think of the bovie in the operating room. Now this is a different situation than the bovie in the operating room. You're doing electric artery, but that's the point of a bovie in the operating room, is that energy. This is. I know we've said it's a different type of energy, but that bovie stops bleeding. That's what it's for, and the anticipation is that this will stop bleeding too. We didn't have any. You didn't see any bleeding or hemorrhage on that slide in the mouse.
That's fair enough.
Okay? I mean, I think all your questions are very valid. Again, we're right on the edge, and when we start our clinical studies, and then we think that all these questions will be answered.
Well, the answers are in the future.
Yes, thank you. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Let me go through the financials. So here is Athena Laboratories business model. As you can see, Athena Laboratories business model is pretty similar to those of publicly traded companies in the aesthetic laser medical device industry. Sales and marketing cost is our biggest cost. Outsourcing manufacturing to an OEM will increase the cost of goods sold, but will minimize the manufacturing cost. In the end, Athena Laboratory will secure a steady profit of 21%. Right now, we are seeking $1.5 million of Series A funding in exchange for 30% of the company. The funding will be used for complete prototype development and 510K clearance. In 2 years after we receive Series A funding, we expect to launch the product. Based on our market validation, we will be profitable in the first year of sales. In 3 years of sales, which is also the 5th year after Series A funding, we will be ready for acquisition. Using a 4x revenue multiplier, which is based on the industry average, Athena Laboratory will be valued at $138 million in year 2016. The Series A founders will receive $37 million with an exit stake of 20%, which is a 25x cash-on-cash return. Here are several recent acquisition examples. The company in the left column are all aesthetic medical device companies. Mentor is acquired by Johnson & Johnson for $1 billion. Now, please allow me to introduce our CEO, Ruben Woods. She will have something more to talk to you.
Thanks, Wendy. Okay, now I want to talk to you about another huge asset of Athena Laboratories, and that's our management team. Combined, we have over 100 years of business experience. First, there's me. I have launched a med spa here in Austin from napkin phase to multiple locations. I'm currently the #1 salesperson for Spine medical device company in CareFusion. Then we have Dr. Wendell Johnson, you obviously know him, an anesthesiologist at the University of Texas Health Sciences Center and an associate professor. And he has built and sold 2 clinical practices. We have Albert Alvarez, who has launched 29 products, full from idea to product launch. We have Wendy Wu, who has expertise in accounting, financial modeling, and risk assessment. We have Wayne Whitmire with 18 years of business development experience. And last but not least, we have Alex Garcia. He's a physicist and entrepreneur with 15 years of experience. Not to be outdone by our advisory board. Our advisory board consists of the inventors, Dr. Milner and Dr. Neve. You mentioned LASIK surgery earlier. Well, they own the patents and license them out for the use of the Femtosecond laser for LASIK eye surgery. These are the same guys. They also launched Cardiospectra and dynamic cooling. They've commercialized multiple technologies in the aesthetic laser device industry. Then we have Dr. Lawrence Broder, who's helping us with our clinicals here in Austin. So let me summarize. What we have is a huge market. We have an unmet market need. This is the next generation. This isn't just a treatment for cellulite. This is a platform technology. Using a different tip, you can treat tattoos, tattoo removal, skin rejuvenation, wrinkles. It's just the beginning. Think about what you can do with surgery without disrupting the skin. Think about how you could ablate cancer tumors. This is the next big thing. Cellulite is just the beginning of this market. We have an excellent management team. We have 14 patents. We're asking for $1.5 million in Series A funding for a 30% equity stake. We're anticipating, with a 3% market share the first year, 2 procedures a day, a 25x cash-on-cash return, and an IRR of 90%. So, thank you, gentlemen. Anybody?
Surely there's somebody else out there who's focusing lasers at the, subsurface level. It's not that theoretically hard to understand.
Or just talk about the other group that's doing this.
Okay, I'll talk about the other group.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to talk about the other group that's, okay. So there's one other company.
Invasive procedure, yeah.
There's one other company, Cyanosure, and they have a product called a Cellulase Laser. And what that is because the septia is how you treat it. I mean, you have to cut the septia. That's why nothing else works here. So what they do is they cut the skin, they stick their hot laser underneath, and they heat and destroy the septia using a hot laser. Dr. Milner likes to use the analogy, if you have a piece of meat and you take an axe and you cut it, you're going to get 2 pieces, but there's going to be a lot of collateral damage in there.
Do you mean cutting butter with a hatchet? Is that the metaphor? Sorry.
Whereas if you take a surgical scalpel, which has a tip, a sharp blade.
I think we get the difference between the procedures. Just tell us about that business. So how big are they? What kind of penetration they have?
Well, they just launched.
Okay.
They just launched, so we don't have those numbers. But they actually just launched. They were just approved in January.
And the Cyanosure, who owns the Cellulite, their revenue compared in the first, so they just launched in the beginning of the year, but their revenue in the first quarter has already increased 56% compared with the last year.
Okay, we're done. Thank you.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you.